It is the 8th of June 2021, and law enforcement around the world are getting ready for a raid that will go down in history as a stroke of genius. It is a collaborative effort between 16 countries that'll see the end of many crime rings, the confiscation of tons of drugs, and the arrests of many most wanted criminals. These are the results of Operation Trojan Shield, the deadliest trap the FBI ever laid. Our story starts with a man, only known as Afgoo. Afgoo had come to the FBI with a curious proposition: access the private chats of criminals around the globe. How is that possible? Let me explain. Criminals, especially large organizations, need a secure way to communicate with each other. Their method of communication needs to be impenetrable to law enforcement, which is by no means an easy task. To fulfill this demand, several criminally operated brands emerged. SkyECC, EncroChat, and Phantom Secure are the big names in the criminal world. These brands had one-hit product: heavily encrypted phones. These secure phones were virtually impossible to track, and their specialized messaging software was designed to protect against the eye of the law. And these things didn't come cheap. Operating on a subscription plan, an encrypted phone could cost you thousands of dollars a year. In exchange, you got complete protection from the law reading your chats. But here's the thing, the FBI was not sitting idle. One by one, these brands were being taken down. SkyECC and EncroChat both got shut down, and when Phantom Secure got sent to the chopping block in 2018, there was a huge vacuum left in the criminal world. Sooner or later, another brand would step in and fill the void. This gave Afgoo an idea. How about he make the next encrypted phone? And so, Anom was born. Afgoo became the CEO, and with the help of some coders he hired remotely, the Anom phone was ready. Its features made it the perfect replacement for Phantom Secure. Here's how it worked. So the phone Afgoo used was the Google Pixel running the Arcane OS. Not much is known about this OS publicly. When you booted up the phone, you're met with a number pad to insert your PIN. Only the numbers are randomly rearranged each time you open the phone. This is done to prevent anyone from finding out your PIN by looking at your finger movement. Clever. When you enter the lock screen, there are 3 pins you can enter. One pin will wipe out the phone instantly, so you can quickly discard any evidence. The second pin will lead you to a normal-looking phone screen with apps like Netflix, Instagram, Snapchat, and Spotify. But when you try to open any of them, nothing happens. This is the dummy screen to help you pretend like this is just a normal phone. The real magic happens when you type in the third pin. This takes you to a hidden screen with a limited number of apps. The one you need is the calculator. Upon inserting a certain calculation, the phone launches the Anom Messenger app, where all the criminal talk happens. This app is the main feature of the whole invention. It is safe, secure, and heavily encrypted. Also, just for convenience and safety, there's another quick shortcut to format the phone in the drop-down menu. The amount of ingenuity here is insane. Afgoo could have made a lot of profit from this, but he had other plans. He wanted to share his work with the FBI. Now, why exactly Afgoo did so is under debate. He certainly did not do it out of the goodness of his own heart. A leading theory is that Afgoo was in some trouble with the FBI, and he used Anom as a bargaining chip to get a reduced sentence. Whatever the case, when approached by Afgoo's lawyer with the proposition, Andrew Young, representing the Department of Justice, was interested. After all, this guy was handing them the keys to the communications world of the criminals. And with that, the plan began to form. The FBI had Afgoo put in a backdoor into the Anom messaging app. This would, in practice, allow law enforcement to read every message sent on the supposedly secure platform. Basically, every message was copied and sent to the FBI servers, alongside an ID attached to it so the sender could be tracked. It could then be recorded and read whenever needed. It was a genius idea, but there were some initial bumps in the initial phase. Mainly, the FBI needed approval to actually read these messages. There was a whole issue with the privacy laws and the Fourth Amendment. So, FBI decided to have beta testing outside the US first. Australia was more than happy to oblige. AFP, or the Australian Federal Police, gladly became part of the operation. and in October 2018, 50 Anom devices were distributed in Australia secretly. Each one found its way into the hands of a criminal, and it worked perfectly. The AFP could access the messages from these criminals successfully. Now, it was time to really up the distribution of the Anom phones. After holding a lot of meetings with his superiors, Andrew Young was given the green light for distribution in the US. But since the FBI cannot host its servers inside the US, once again due to privacy laws and the Fourth Amendment, they have to look outwards. This time, Lithuania in the EU is up for the task. With the servers now hosted in Lithuania, the Fourth Amendment restrictions are successfully bypassed. The distribution of the Anom phones inside the US was in part made possible thanks to a guy named Hakan Ayik. Hakan Ayik is a criminal whom the FBI think is the perfect target to further their cause. He's edged on by undercover agents to sell the Anom phones on the black market to criminals. To Hakan Ayik, it is a business opportunity like no other, but he has no idea he's being used. And with his help, by 2019, Anom phones in circulation numbered in the hundreds. 2 years later, in 2021, over 11,000 Anom phones have been distributed, of which 9,000 were in use. The Anom messenger app was being used by criminals across the globe, including the European Union, the USA, South America, several African and Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Russia, and China. That isn't even the whole list. The net has been spread wide, with Europol, the Swedish police, and even New Zealand coming under the umbrella. Up until this point, the authorities had been going for a minimal interference policy. They stopped a few crimes here and there, but mostly they were observers, just watching and recording the messages flooding in. But it was now time to act. The Anom messaging app, as I mentioned earlier, was gaining a lot of popularity. By now, there was an overwhelming amount of data coming in, and action had to be taken before things got out of hand. On top of that, USA's server access warrant was coming to an end on June 7, 2021. On June 8, the trap was sprung. In 16 countries around the globe, at the same time, police raids were conducted to apprehend the criminals who had been foolishly using Anom. It was a huge blow to organized crime, with over 800 people arrested. And not just your average thieves and drug dealers. The authorities went after the big fish. They targeted drug syndicates, outlaw motorcycle gangs, Australian-based Italian mafia, and Albanian organized crime groups. In the process, the authorities seized nearly 40 tons of drugs. They also confiscated 250 weapons and many luxury cars. A total of a staggering $48 million was recovered in the form of cryptocurrencies and cash. The whole operation had been a wild success. The next day, the authorities proudly announced the details of Operation Trojan Shield and what they had to show for it. It was a huge victory against crime, and one of its effects was to create distrust in organized crime gangs. Criminals even began distrusting the tools they used. They quickly ditched their Anom phones, not wanting to be the next on the chopping block, and surprisingly, a good number of these phones found their way into the hands of the public who had no idea what to do with them. Many had bought them from the online marketplace without any idea that these things had next to no functionality as a normal phone. When the dust settled, the law had clearly come out on top. But was it really worth it? There have been several court cases in Australia since the arrests challenging the use of Anom chats as evidence. A German court has already ruled against using Anom chats as evidence since they cannot be directly linked to the culprits. So with the legitimacy of the core piece of evidence being in question, who knows how many of these criminals will go unpunished? And then there's the lack of action by the authorities before the raid. While the cops did stop some of the crimes being discussed on the screen in front of them by Anom users, a lot of these crimes, including murder, were simply allowed to happen for the sake of keeping the back door a secret. To many, this is unforgivable. There's also the question of privacy infringement. Many believe that while this operation led to arguably positive results, the ends do not justify the means. The FBI more or less found a loophole to spy on US citizens by putting their servers outside the country. And should the FBI have the power to read the encrypted messages of the public in the first place? It is a question that needs to be answered. While it is clear that Operation Trojan Shield led to hundreds of arrests, it still has its fair share of controversies. What are your thoughts on it all? Do you think the operation was really worth it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed watching, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye.